Sea, used and exploited by Greeks and Phoenicians, just to mention a few, to colonize, but also to trade. The Mediterranean Sea is a connection to Africa, not a barrier. Now, because of this, the Cretan world had a documented presence of black people, which we find in the Minoic civilization, and the same can be said also about the Mycenaean world of mainland Greece. We see black individuals in Minoan representations of the Bronze Age, and because of the extreme diversity of representations, musicians, warriors, traders, etc., we can understand that they had entered fully into the Minoan social fabric. And as we said, we have a very similar situation with the Mycenaean world, starting from the 14th century BC, and by the 9th century, this would be commonplace. When referring to black Africans, the term sub-Saharan is also slightly inappropriate for the period, which is why I'm not using it, as black people weren't only present south of the Sahara Desert, and there is a lot of evidence for that. In northern Africa, we have populations such as the Gaetuli, which was a Romanized name for an ancient Berber tribe inhabiting the lands called Gaetulia. Documents place Gaetulia in pre-Roman times along the Mediterranean coast of what is now Algeria and Tunisia and north of the Atlas. During the Roman period, according to Pliny the Elder, the Gaetuli established themselves south of the province of Mauretania Tingitana in modern-day Morocco. Now, the Gaetuli were a Berber people, so we've got depigmentation, generally speaking pale skin, some people were blonde. However, the Romans also differentiated within a second group in the same tribe called Melano Gaetuli, which means black Gaetuli, so they were mixed. Again, a substantial black African presence is documented by the 1st century Greek historian Diodorus Siculus when he's talking about the African expeditions of the 4th century by Agathocles, the tyrant of Syracuse. And Diodorus Siculus describes the inhabitants of the city of Felin being as black as the Ethiopians. Something that can really help us increase the level of detail by which we can understand how multi-ethnical the ancient world was is by utilizing osteological examinations. Osteology is the detailed study of the structure of bones, skeletal elements, teeth, microbone morphology, function, disease, and generally speaking the resistance and hardness of bones, so biophysics. Cranial osteological examinations of Carthaginian cemeteries, but also cemeteries in the Balearic Islands, show again a substantial presence of black individuals. We have the famous sarcophagus of the priestess of Carthage, revealing again a cranium belonging to an individual of mixed origin. Surprisingly enough, a similar situation also happens with
Here is the full quote by Betard, where he says, a sarcophagus was found in Carthage that showed a priestess of Tanit, whose features, when they looked in it, was Negroid. And he says that she was an African by race. So let's use all this information that we have in here to see if we can find her. So in Tunisia, we can see that they have the Carthage National Museum, and in there they have sarcophages of a priest and priestess. So is this priestess the one that Picard talked about? Let's find out. From this source, we can see that the Museum of Carthage was at one point in time called the Musée Lavegerie. So we may be close. This may be the actual museum it was at. Pere de la Tree. If this wiki image source is correct, then he's the one that drew this. And if he's the one that drew this image is the same one from the Museum of Carthage. So if that's the case, it fits the description describing how the sarcophagus was elaborate, the most beautiful one that was there. This then may be the coffin, the sarcophagus.
Dexter.